Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of our Sustainability Perspectives podcast, where we talk to a range of different packaging experts to learn more about how their company tackles the sustainability challenges the industry faces. So, my name is Elisabeth Kuhler, and today we are focusing on how businesses can effectively navigate the green transition using data driven strategies. Our guest today is Mitja Brgant, who is Director of European Operations at Trayak, which is a leader in sustainability analytics. We'll explore how Trayak is helping companies, especially in the packaging industry, to meet new sustainability challenges. And Mitja Brgant himself has over 2 decades of experience in the packaging and sustainability sectors, and his book, Breaking the Packaging, offers a deep dive into the complexities of sustainable packaging. Mitja has been instrumental in aligning Trayak's Eco Impact Compass platform with European standards, making it a vital tool for businesses in their sustainability efforts. So yeah, welcome, Mitya. I'm looking forward to you sharing your insights with us today and hear more about data-driven sustainability.
Hello, Elizabeth, and thank you for such a nice introduction.
You're most welcome. I wanted to start a conversation by asking a very broad question. What does sustainability mean to you?
Well, for me, sustainability is a complex balance of everything that is happening on the planet. And this balance should be achieved with fairness, responsibility, and accountability of each and every individual in any roles we have in this life. Today we are talking about environmental sustainability, but it's important to stress out that sustainability has multiple phases and we must not lose sight of that. So sustainability is also economic, social, humanistic, and any other form. So when it comes to environmental parts of sustainability, for me, that means a scientific data-driven insight into a complete environmental impact of a product or a service in as wide of a frame as possible. Businesses have and use their economic sustainability tools such as ERPs, and the reports are coming out in the form of PLEs, balance sheets, ledgers, etc. And there is no reason why we cannot do the same for environmental aspects. I believe we have everything we need to do so. So we have scientific principles and methodologies. We have data, we have the technology. And now in Europe, we also have a legislative frame. So the European Commission's CSRD and EFRAG's ESRS as the reporting format deliver all the criteria so we can execute such a data-driven approach where actual data is evaluated and benchmarked. We could see how in the past decisions that were taken on the grounds of either partial data or even worse, just assumptions, did result in false decisions, decisions which significantly had a negative environmental effects. To eliminate such scenarios, environmental strategies and reports should be only based on factual data and calculated with appropriate globally accepted methodologies, and results should be presented in a factual form on the same common denominators. To summarize it, for me, the transition to sustainability is a factual data-driven process of decreasing one's environmental footprint.
Why would you say is it crucial to make sustainable choices today in particular?
It's crucial because of the fact that the changes which we are implementing today will show positive results not in 1 year, but in decades. Maybe it will take even longer. Let's assume that the majority of populace now understands that we have an environmental problems, because environmental problems are not just greenhouse gas emissions. It's also the state of our waters, landmasses, biodiversity. It took us 150 years to get to this point, and especially in the last 50 years or so is the period where we stepped over the line of reasonable consumption. Now, to get back within the boundaries of the sustainable consumption, we will need time. If we don't take these actions today, probably in 50 years, the lives as we know them and enjoy them will surely be gone. This means that our already born children will be deprived of any form of safe and healthy lives. So we better make sure that any decisions and actions we take today are correct. We can eliminate false decisions only if we are using data-driven strategies and step away from descriptive problem solving, which we were doing in the past.
Leading on from that, what would you say are the key principles of sustainability that everybody should understand?
Sustainability is only relevant if it can be benchmarked. For that, we need to have the right data, correct procedures, and methodologies. Again, environmental sustainability is not only about the CO2 and greenhouse gas emissions. This is one, it is an important indicator, but it's just one indicator. The companies that went through the processes of scope 1 and 2 and 3, that's a good start, but it doesn't give a full in-depth analytics. This has to be done on the backbone of a complete LCA analytics. So everything is interconnected. And when we are approaching sustainability, we need to be aware that we need to look in all directions. We need to consider the complete life cycle of each and every material, component, product, service, and we need to include all of that in one analytics. Once we have the results, we can actually see what kind of a real environmental impact a business has. So the narrow gate-to-gate scopes, which were used in the past for single products, are not sufficient anymore. Companies simply need to have a complete overview and control of their environmental impacts. Like in packaging, we too often see a product that is presented and or marketed as more sustainable alternative. Even if this may be true for a single product, it may not be true for a complete packaging concept, which includes all primary, secondary, and tertiary packaging. We have also all the damage rates, actual material circularity index, return rates, with all of the processes, use phases, shelf life of a product, and actual recycling rates. Then we can actually start to compare which material or packaging concept is better. So we cannot talk about a more sustainable individual product without understanding the complete packaging design and structure. Conversely, at least in the initial phase, the companies do not have to complicate their approach to analytics. So at Trayak, we offer multiple approaches that deliver the results and are not internal process interruptive, and they are very economical. This is highly important because the companies are on different levels of their sustainability process implementations and have different data relevant to the sustainability analytics available. However, the correct and only acceptable way of sustainability analytics is through complete value chain oversight. And companies do face challenges in collecting the data from their vendors as well as customers and logistics providers. At Trayak, we help companies streamline these processes and search only for the relevant data. So sustainability needs to make sense on all levels. This is why it's so complex, because products, business operations demand that we have the widest scope of data possible. So from my experience, companies spend far too much time and energy on a single product or operation. The companies simply think that looking beyond their operations to vendors, for example, will be even harder and much more resource consuming. This is why wider approach somehow scares them, but they need to find a way how to overcome that, even now because of the legislative push we have in Europe. And the question is, how can a company know where the environmental hotspots occur if they do not have a complete picture? Today, there are actually lots of simpler and more effective ways in existence, and companies can actually focus on what and how to improve their products and operations rather than just waste time and energy on peaks, which don't really matter in complete scheme of things.
That brings me to the point of zooming in a bit on the role of data in sustainability and what makes a data-driven approach to sustainability a good method of choice?
And that's a good question. So in the past, companies have taken the approach to sustainability by committing to goals that just sounded familiar. They were mimicking what their competitors were doing. The number of companies that it's missing their sustainable goals or will soon be missing these goals is quite high. And the question is, why is that happening? Primarily, the goals were not achievable for them because they actually don't know where their problematic hotspots are. So a data-driven approach should um, be only sustainability approach, and its results should serve as a guide map during the green transition. The packaging industry is probably the best example to argue such a statement because it offers so many examples of how things can go sideways in the complete scheme of things with little to no data taken into decision making process. So from the 70s onwards, the volume of packaging in the global market has been and still is exponentially increasing. So long ago, the packaging industry recognized that such a high packaging volume poses a risk to the natural balance. And for decades, the industry has been and still is looking for more environmental friendly packaging. Now, the number of attempts to make really sustainable packaging is enormous. There were and still are many good pilot projects in the global market. However, the claimed benefits often subside when it comes to actual implementation into the real-time value chain stream. And these changes are often not implemented in the market. Now, when you're looking for reasons why, the most used explanation is that this is because it's more expensive, or such a change would cut too deep into the bottom line of a company. However, this is a very, very simple argument, and to a large degree points to a non-alignment within the supply chain of a consensus what sustainable packaging actually is. So sustainability goes beyond the environmental scope and includes economic and social factors, amongst others. But even though the environmental aspect of sustainability is at the moment probably the most crucial due to the state of our planet. So this is why it's crucial to apply a real holistic approach to packaging sustainability. And such holistic approach combines all the life phases of both the packaging material as well as the packaged products. So the whole packaging concept and design rather than a single comparison of one material, then it has to include understanding of the value chain, logistics processes, shelf life, and so on. So it's really, really complex. Now, to achieve that, we do need to rely on data. Otherwise, companies just get lost. So the data and the processes with globally accepted and compliant methodologies and correct units of measurement can eliminate the misunderstandings and bad decisions.
Zooming in on that a bit, what types of data are most useful for assessing sustainability?
This heavily depends on which tools the company will use in the sustainable transition process. With the way how Trayak is designed and for how long it is in the market, this data set can be very short and simple, all the way to very complex. So our team can map and use many data points which are relevant to one company's analytics. So in general, at the minimum, a company needs to provide material and processes by which the material is converted, the mass of the material, inbound data, and outbound data. These are primarily transport, type, and the distance for the complete value chain. And these data are needed for all of the materials in use. We can already calculate the basic environmental impact. If a company has a full bill of materials, it's even better, it's even more accurate. In general, there are two types of data. So we have attribute data and live data. So attribute data come from verified databases, such as Ecoinvent, for example, and can be considered as regional industry averages. Live data are actual data that are measured and collected on the spot during the process and so on. But these data need to be reviewed and verified, modeled, and then analyzed. So such data, live data, need to be acquired also with the correct and verified methodologies to avoid any potential false results. And from that point onward, also false claims. So this is where the company needs to choose the appropriate approach for them, form a concept. And this is usually a trade-off between balance of speed, how fast do they need the sustainability report or strategy, accuracy, and also economic factors, because any such process can be costly or can be also very economical. That really depends on how you set it up in the beginning. So for the majority of cases, leaning on established attribute database data gives companies enough accuracy to outline the environmental pain points of operations and show where the companies can or have to optimize their environmental footprint.
And could you give me an example of where data significantly impacted a sustainability project?
I will use an example from the packaging industry. It will give an important insight of why analytical data approach is crucial if we want to be sure that changes which we are applying actually make any difference. For in the past, too many things were left to assumptions and guesstimations, which at the end of the day created lots of misunderstanding and misinterpretation in the market. So we all know that everybody is pushing for increased recycled content in the packaging materials. I'm sure that you have noticed how brands and retailers started pushing for 100% recycled packaging. So with one of the converters, we have decided to analyze if such a 100% recycled material demand is actually making any sense in sustainable aspects. So the material in question was cardboard. And a crucial thing to outline here is that we have gone to the packaging basis. So we did not simply say we will replace 300-gram virgin board with 300G recycled board. We have calculated and designed a proper, effective packaging, which has satisfied all of the technical demands given by the brand. An important thing to note is that we cannot redesign packaging in such a way to get better environmental score, but the product becomes technically uncompliant. So once we have done the design and the materials were in place, we were looking for the same technical characteristics. So 100% recycled cardboard, virgin cardboard, as well as different percentages of mixes in between. To achieve the same technical characteristic, we use different weights of base cardboard and then calculated a complete comparative LCA of the boxes. So LCA clearly showed that a certain mix had least impact. So less than 100% recycled cardboard and less than virgin material. This means that the push for 100% recycled content by brands and retailers were actually not making the best sustainable results. So it was not the best way forward. And when the data was presented to the brand, they were really surprised and asked us to perform analytics on a couple of more products. First, we assumed that the results will be more or less the same, but they weren't. The different technical targets of the final cardboard boxes demanded different cardboard choices, and the environmental results were different from one box to another. And there was also one more very interesting thing to mention is that Trayak's platform comes with not just sustainability comparison, but also with the cost comparison model. And you are monitoring the costs of packaging as well. So usually the assumption was that the more environmentally friendly packaging will be more expensive. Now, the economic results showed that this is not always the case. There was no linear proof that more environmentally friendly packaging is costlier. Sometimes it was cheaper, sometimes it was at the same level, and yes, sometimes it came out higher. So at the end of the day, what we learned in this process is that each and every packaging is a story on its own. And generalization of data, turning them into assumptions will not help us achieve our set targets. And I can think of few examples where false, missing, or non-existent data cause companies to make largely false statements about their products. And the product per product comparison should not be only on one level. It should encompass the complete packaging system across the complete value chain. It's logical that all the brands as well as packaging manufacturers are looking for that extra competitive edge. But we all need to be a lot more transparent, and we need to start talking about actual environmental impacts. So if a product's material base is recycled and the company uses greener energy or even just trades off carbon emissions, that does not make the final product a zero emission product. If a supplier of a component of the packaging concept states that their product, which is just a component in this case, is 80% less carbon emissions, then that doesn't mean that the whole packaging concept is then 80% less GHG. So in all of these cases, as well as many others, I analyzed all of these statements, and the results were significantly different from what was stated. So only my deeper research of this statement made me to realize how Frankenstein into these statements were. So they were just put together without any applicable methodology and without any verified approach. And what was scarier was that lots of competitors and customers have then used this false data to make their own claims. So I'm sure that such an approach will not help us become a sustainable society. So my opinion is, as with finances, environmental sustainability analytics has its methodologies of data collecting, analyzing, and presenting. And on top of that, companies need a correct overview of environmental impact data, such as what we have is sustainability intelligence, for example. And only then these decisions, statements, and all other marketing and reporting things can be done in a proper way.
I wanted to ask you, Trayak obviously talks about sustainability intelligence, and how does the company define this concept?
So sustainability intelligence is leveraging companies' portfolio data to gain valuable insights into where to focus the efforts, which sustainable strategies will be the most effective, and what at the end of the day are the low-hanging fruits to optimize the environmental impact. So once a company performs a baseline, they gain a variety of insights from the data. We follow multiple indicators, and these indicators show us a complete picture. And from base of that, we can actually decide which materials are causing the most environmental impacts. What kind of materials are better than the others for our products or for our brands. Then we can also focus, okay, we're using packaging which ends up at landfills. How can we change that? Then we can focus on where in the life cycle of packaging the most impact is created. So any seasoned environmental expert will point out that the most accurate insight and insightful sustainability analytics start with the LCA, so life cycle assessment. And that these numerous impact indicators within LCA deliver a reliable image of the total environmental impact of either one's company's product or the complete portfolio or the total operation. So when we collect all this data, the data are then analyzed from multiple angles, and the result gives us a solid grounds for a green transition strategy. So now Europe CSRS is in play, and even with the current topical standards, everyone is starting to see that there is much more to consider than just global emissions. Sector-specific standards are expected to add new indicators per industrial sector, and this will result in more and more data points, which will ultimately need to be structured and logically organized in order to be managed correctly by companies. For us, Trayak sustainability intelligence is just a natural progression of data explaining, visualizing, and structuring for the whole sustainability team, as well as the management. With SI, you can see the exact points of the most effective optimization that will reduce environmental impacts and with which trade-offs that will happen. So any change that is being made will undoubtedly affect other environmental indicators. This means that nothing in sustainability is really straightforward. So sustainability intelligence powered with AI, following all the global and local standards and regulations, give enough overview for the companies to plan, take action, and of course, accurately report their activities.
You mentioned AI in your previous answer. How do you envision the role of artificial intelligence in promoting sustainability?
As opposed to the top-down goals making approach, sustainability intelligence takes a bottoms-up, holistic view of companies' unique portfolio and turns insights into actionable steps to achieve goals. So, to make a few steps back in reality, the sustainability game has changed with CSRD and now ESRS. Suddenly, the brands have a significantly larger obligatory scope to report on. From what were single points of monitoring and controlling, they need to now have an oversight of an enormous amount of new data. So just a year ago, companies focused was primarily on the processes that related to greenhouse gas emissions. Today, they also need to think about water impact, biodiversity, human impact, social impact, et cetera, et cetera. That means that companies need to rethink the sustainability goals and strategies. So it's a completely new game and will get more complex in the future with the digital product passport, et cetera, et cetera. So sustainability intelligence gives the brands a complete environmental overview of any product, packaging, or service. Put it in a different perspective. Sustainability intelligence is brands' environmental ERP, P&L, CFS, ledger, balance sheet, everything combined. So, and in addition, when it comes to packaging, for example, with all the existing and the new upcoming regulations, the AI and SI can really benchmark the portfolio of brand or a company or a converter against any active regulation. So brands need to start applying the holistic approach. In the end, they need to form regulatory environmental reports where they also need to set their targets. This means that a simple statement, we will use only 100% recycled packaging content, or something like, we will not use plastic, is not viable anymore. They need to have a complete oversight of environmental consequences. And the why for each decision needs to be methodologically and thoroughly analyzed.
You talked about the insights that can be gained, and how can these insights help companies to deal with ever changing regulatory requirements?
We can generate a variety of reports, and the customers can use them in accordance with their knowledge of the regulatory requirements. So our sustainable intelligence gives a very deep analytics, and companies can already see if they are aligned with either regulatory or internal targets. So in addition, Trayak does harness artificial intelligence to keep track of changing regulatory landscapes around the globe. So these sustainable strategies can be tested in the context of the regulatory requirements. So for example, will my chosen design strategy meet regulatory requirements in all regions or just in one region? What are other requirements that I need to consider and that will support compliance and further progress towards my goals? So since Trayak is around the block for quite some time, we have a large data bank of success scenarios, and we combine that with AI, which then benchmarks the current or alternative products with a selected target regulatory brand or any other market requirements. This way, our customers can be sure that their products will be compliant, and if their products are not compliant, they get the information what they need to do to become compliant. So these days, regulations are changing very, very fast, especially in the packaging industry. And companies need to be sure that what they place in the market is aligned to global or local standards. So if standards change, I have a feeling that this will be the case for the next few years now. These changes, with Trayak automatically informed on our platform. So the designers, the users, the customers see, okay, with this change, we need to change position ABC within our, let's say, packaging concept. On top of it all, clients can also see how they align with various environmental initiatives. So, that these initiatives might originate from brands, retailers, or other organizations. So all serious environmental initiatives have data-driven goals, and we have many of them implemented.
The next question I had for you was what are the biggest challenges in integrating data into sustainable practices?
The main challenge I see is in the market is that companies still do not see the benefit of such an approach. Of course, in Europe, ESRS is pushing companies in that direction, but what still surprises me is that companies are still often very on a narrow path of sustainability acceptance with lots of resistance towards it, especially in the companies that are currently still outside the mandatory CSRD scope. So the first challenge is the crucial step for such companies to recognize that data-driven sustainability demands are not just a phase that will eventually subside, but such an approach will become as an important as reporting of companies' financial results. So the second challenge is the collection and selection of relevant data points. So too often what we see in the market, the companies are making descriptive sustainability strategies and claims and so on without any actual data in the background. Now with the ESRS in place, the big brands, the big retailers are starting to ask their vendors about their environmental impact. And the smaller companies, SMEs, are writing reports, how sustainable they are, and so on. And this is usually descriptive. They don't have any data points collected and gathered within the company. The simple fact is that that was not asked of the companies. So their products and their activities need to be factually evaluated, just the same way as they do with the finances. Too often, the companies are asked to collect the data that is actually not needed, at least not in the initial evaluation, and maybe it will never be needed, but they do not collect the data that they need. I know that companies are often scared about it, but from my experience, the majority of companies already has the majority of data to perform correct sustainability analytics already in the house. This is something where we explain which data is needed. Companies must be aware that sustainability reporting will be an ongoing periodical process. So it's important they have the correct data collection and processing and reporting in place. Otherwise, they will be spinning in circles and they will be less and less market compliant and also regulatory compliant.
And I was wondering, how can companies translate these insights into tangible actions to achieve their sustainability goals based on informed decision making?
Once a company gains insights into where to focus or which correct strategies are available, the next step is to show which will work best. So companies will have to perform what if scenarios and quick simulations to decide which would be the most successful strategy. So the power of our digital simulation is that there are no risk and they're free and they're much easier to perform than to go and try it out in the real world. So for example, what we can do is we can do a scenario. What if I replace all of these components of one material with another material base? Will increasing recycled content across the portfolio actually give any expected better results and so on? The other scenario could be, what if we aim for lightweight designs? So If I would outline the key steps in sustainability analytics, this would be analyze, B, understand, set targets, simulate, set strategy, implement, and monitor. And all of these parameters can be set in the platform. And once you go through all the steps, the sustainability team has a superior oversight of what was, what is, and what can be, and what will be. So companies suddenly have a similar oversight of environmental impacts as they do have for their financial overviews. So all the guesstimations and blind decision making are just simply out of the window. Once the company has all the data in our system, the possibilities are basically endless.
Towards the end of this podcast, I'd like to look to the future a little bit. And how does Trayak plan to stay ahead of trends and advancement in sustainability data management?
We aggressively prototype and harness new technologies to see how these prototypes technologies can solve customers' problems in the sustainability area. So we regularly test lab features and put them into the hands of early adopters with goals of learning and adding more value to our clients. So our customers tend to be leaders in their industries, and we collaborate with them, listen to their feedback, and test these strategies, technologies to ensure if it is useful before we deploy them to a wider market. So in addition, we have done workshops on sustainability intelligence and received great feedback. We're constantly looking for these customer and market feedbacks. In fact, we will be performing another workshop at the upcoming Sustainability Summit this year with Packaging Europe. And in addition, we participate in a lot of sustainability forums and sponsor a lot of awards. So Trayak has close relationship with our leading customer, and we regularly gain insights into problems that are occurring real time and are the most difficult ones in the industries. And based on that, we analyze a lot of potential development points, market trends. We follow and monitor all the regulatory trends, which are increasing now on a global scale. And then we check and see to what extent we can adopt our current technology and expertise, and which steps need to be taken to stay at this pinnacle of data-driven sustainability analytics where Trayak is at the moment. As an example, we have had two such scenarios in the European market now in place. One is the ESRS, so CSRD and ESRS, and the other one is the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive, current and the future one. We said, okay, with the ESRS, we're going to focus on current topical standards, and basically we see that our technology can be also adapted to sector-specific standards, which will come out now in the future. So we're already looking how to address the market needs, which will be basically in 2 years. We're doing the same for the digital product passport, where the foreground of analytics will be LCA. We already look over the horizon of how to set the platform for our customers to simply just use the same data that they have on our platform to report also on that principles. So, and by, for example, with Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive, we took it even a step further. So our integrated artificial intelligence AI agent is already helping in the decision-making processes. And I can say that when I benchmark it with quite some history in packaging, when I think this would be the right solution, and then I see what our AI agent says, it's really accurate, surprisingly accurate. I would say 99% there, what the best solution is.
I wanted to ask you, what innovations are you most excited about in the field of sustainability, and also what trends do you see in the future of sustainability?
First, what excites me the most is that we're actually addressing this problem globally, right, which is great. And I think the sustainability is the first case where the whole globe is actually trying to speak the same environmental language, use the same methodologies, and have the same goals. So this is the thing that excites me basically the most. What excites me is that we're finally talking about common denominators of environmental impacts on a global scales. When I think of innovations as such that would have prolific effects on sustainability outcomes, I think that the sheer simplifications of processes and deeper data analytics will be the biggest innovation there. What used to take weeks, if not months, to perform is basically now done in a couple of minutes. You can benchmark and simulate different scenarios, and basically the decisions are much more accurate. And then when you combine that with, for example, our huge data bank of successful scenarios, you can really see how much faster the correct decisions are made. In the packaging world, I'm really happy that we see more and more recycled plastics being used for commodity packaging. And I'm looking at the new PPWD structure, and I'm looking forward of the final outline where I think that we're going to see a lot of new packaging innovation coming out. And then when it comes to the trends in sustainability, the major outline is everything will be data driven, and ESRS reporting standards and digital product passports are just confirming this. I think that the biggest trend in business perspective is that sustainability teams will be formed if they are not as of yet. And these sustainability teams will become an important part of one company's structure. I would say similar to accounting department is at the moment, or purchase department. More and more experts will be needed. And I see that the number of academic programs dedicated to sustainability is increasing. So I'm really looking forward that we have more and more experts available in the market, because the current market demand is huge. And then combining the power of data technology with such sufficient number of trained experts, then we will be able to slowly start making actual sustainable decisions and monitor them.
In conclusion, I wanted to ask you, what are the key points that you would like our listeners to take away from our podcast discussion today?
The first thing and the most important thing is that anything related to environmental sustainability, whether we're talking about products or packaging, can be and should be data driven. We have enough data available in the market, and we have the right tools and methodologies where companies need to provide only a small amount of data to already see where their environmental hotspots are. So the process got a lot simpler. And when we're talking about LCA today, it's something completely different than we were talking about LCA 10 or even 15 years ago. So we really optimized everything. Based on all of this data that we gather and the calculations, we can start using AI and sustainability intelligence tools to help all of us making better decisions and correct decisions. Because like I mentioned in the beginning, whatever we do today, the effects will be seen in a few decades. And if we do the wrong decisions today, in a few decades, we're going to be in a worse situation. So the most important thing is that we all need to start thinking holistically, not just about the product or a material, but we need to see a greater picture. So the right approach, the right tool set, and so on can give you all of that. Unfortunately or luckily, I don't know how to put it, we went beyond the border of I will just take care of my product view. We really need to consider and communicate within the value chain if you want to make actual beneficial choices for everyone.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And that's a great note to finish this podcast on. Yeah, that just leaves me to say thank you very much, Mitja, for being here. And thank you for a really interesting conversation. It's been great to hear more about this topic.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for this time, and looking forward of meeting you in November, right?
Yeah, like Mitja said, Trayak will be at Packaging Europe's Sustainable Packaging Summit, which takes place in Amsterdam on November 12th and 13th this year. For more information and tickets, head to packagingsummit.earth/2024. That just leaves me to say thank you, everybody, for listening. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you at the Sustainable Packaging Summit. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.